To decide or not to decide? That's the question. You'll never have 100% information. Even with hindsight, all you're going to see is the results of that one choice that you made. So how do you know when to just choose something and move on versus deliberate and or wait or ask somebody else to make the decision? Today we're going to be asking a lot of questions, and they're going to get you thinking and will help you figure out a plan of attack. Hi, I'm Jen Sandercock, and this is Jen's Generally Good Game Production Advice column. I'm a games producer who loves helping teams ship their games on time, on budget, with a happy team. In this advice column, I respond to questions from game developers from many different disciplines. Today's question is, how do you know when it's better to make a decision, even without having all the information, instead of waiting and risking blocking the whole team? This question is from a games producer, and I'm a games producer. So firstly, let's talk about the weird role of game production. Producers don't fit into general org charts hierarchies very much because they sort of sit aside from all of the other teams that have their leads and etc. They do, like, there are production leads and they may have a production team underneath, but in general a producer is not in charge of, say, the art team, but they are going to be asking the art team to do things. Of course, what a producer does and where they fit depends on the individual company and can vary so much. However, often producers aren't actually making any decisions themselves. They're just making suggestions to creatives, tech, and the team as a whole. And yet, producers must make decisions sometimes to help get the game made. What I'm about to say next applies to everyone at a games company, not just producers, although there will be some advice just for producers as well. Okay, so how should you approach whether you should make a decision or not? Well, you ask a bunch more questions. Most likely you won't have clear answers to any of the questions, but hopefully your answers or lack thereof will help you figure out what to do or not do, as the case may be. So first up, check the framing and decision categorization. Is the decision premise solid? Perhaps you're mistaking the symptom for the problem. For example, someone on your team might say, there's too many meetings. Let's get rid of some of these meetings. Here, it probably isn't actually the number of meetings that it's fault. It's how effective those meetings are. So instead of cancelling meetings, what you should probably be doing is attempt to understand why the current meetings aren't efficient and effective and fix that instead. Is this actually the right decision to make right now? Could it wait another month to allow space for more pressing work and decisions? And a sub-question of this is, do we need to make another decision first that's blocking this decision? For example, we can't decide on the standard dimensions of art assets for our platformer game until we've decided how high the player character is going to jump. Ask yourself, what type of decision is this? Is it strategic versus day-to-day? Is it about creative things, technical, production, some other discipline? What you're trying to understand here is what is the scope of the decision, and that's going to help you figure out impact and who is potentially meant to be making this decision instead of you. Is it an arbitrary choice and or just about defining terminology? For example, deciding whether your alpha build is due before or after an alpha phase begins or ends is really just a definition thing. In these cases, what's important is that everybody on your team is on the same page and is using the words in the same way so that expectations are managed. The next set of questions are about considering the history of other decisions that the team has made. So, has this type of decision been made before? If so, what happened in that case? Can you do the same here? Does one of the decision choices align with a project or company goal or another one not align? If so, that could make your decision a lot easier too. Who usually makes this type of decision? Is it an individual or a group of people, or is it unknown who makes this type of decision? In which case, you probably need to figure out who makes the decision about who makes the decision. Woo! Next, has the decision maker gone on holiday? If so, hopefully they've left and given instructions about the types of decisions that need to wait for their return. You need to examine the timing of the decision. when does this decision need to be made? And the follow-up question to that is, where is this urgency coming from? Is it internal, external, involving key stakeholders? If you don't step in and do something, when is it likely that the decision will actually be made? Is that within the required time frame? All of these questions are going to help you figure out how urgently that decision needs to be made. If it can wait until the regular decision maker or makers are back around, then it's probably best to wait. Take a look at what you do know. These questions are going to get to the crux of the matter because they're going to figure out what you know about the decision and what the results of inaction or a bad decision are going to be. What happens if a decision isn't made within the time frame you already identified? Will you miss an opportunity? If so, will there be another opportunity like this in the future? Would not making a decision make things worse? For example, is this an emergency situation where a teammate is in a crisis or there's a publisher deadline that's going to pass? What are the risks and or impacts of a bad decision? That is, focus on all the cons to see what pops out. Could this affect the entire game and or the entire game development negatively? What are you risking? Your job? Everybody's job? Months of work? A few hours of work? If you make a bad decision, how would you backtrack to get to where you are right now? How long would that take? What assumptions are you making? If you can't see any, ask other people on the team to help you identify them because you're definitely making assumptions. With all of this in mind, ask, do we have enough information to be able to make this decision? In other words, how confidently have you been able to answer all of those above questions? How big are the unknowns? If you don't know enough, ask, when will we be able to get enough information? How will we be able to get enough information? Don't make a decision based on minimal and uncertain information unless you won't realistically be able to get more information. You're going to have to use your gut a little bit here to kind of figure out what enough information is because you're never going to know everything. It is important to note that it really is okay to block the team. It can be scary, but it's all right if it's only for a short period of time, or it's going to be hard and or time consuming to undo the work later. Or the choices of direction forward are like wildly different and choosing one direction might block out being able to go to some other direction in the future. Or if the team is building on top of work that either is totally new and nothing like this has ever been done before, or has a low probability of approval during a review. If you realize a decision does need to be made, here are the steps to go through. With all of the questions above that you've already tried answering, you're going to have a head start on the initial ones here. So, 1, obtain as much information as you can. 2, examine your logic, biases, and assumptions. Think through the short and long-term impacts on resources, risks, productivity, etc. Check with other team members. Make the decision. Document it so that everybody knows what was decided and be comfortable with the resulting uncertainty. Note, you can cheat a little bit too. You can assign someone else to be the decision maker, not go in depth on every step, and even skip some of the steps if it's a low impact decision. If it's similar to other decisions that have been made recently, you can just make the same decision as last time. You can also make a partial decision. So, for example, tell someone, hey, work on this task for a day, but tell them to check in tomorrow before continuing. Or if the decision is about which production processes to use or establishing a new production process, tell people that you're just going to try one option out for, say, 2 weeks, and then you're going to assess how it's working and if you want to iterate or throw out the process based on feedback from the team. Sometimes teams end up with decision paralysis, where nobody is prepared to actually make the decision. This happens more frequently when teams are attempting to get consensus from every single team member, or the decision maker is not confident in their authority to actually make decisions. In these cases, the producer can become a deciding tiebreaker vote to keep things moving forwards, or they can bolster the actual decision maker so that that person can get their confidence back. What's better than making a decision when you aren't really meant to and under some sort of time pressure? Well, not getting into that situation in the first place. By doing some prediction and prep, you might be able to avoid making a decision at all. So how do you do that? Well, you can try to make sure there's always some backup side quests for people to work on. So this might be polishing assets, updating documentation, playing a current build of the game, and so on. When setting up processes to complete features and content, make sure that time to review each stage is explicitly part of the process, rather than just assuming that someone can go instantly from stage to stage until something's done. So let's do a quick example for that. Imagine there are two art assets that are needed, asset A and asset B. If the artist worked on asset A until it was fully finished and then started work on asset B, they likely would get blocked somewhere along the way when somebody didn't provide timely feedback, or somebody was asking for questions and changes before moving on. Instead, what you should do is do something like do sketches and concept art for asset A, and then do sketches and concept art for asset B while A is getting reviewed. Then you can do the next steps for asset A while B is getting reviewed, then next steps for B while A is getting reviewed, and so on through all the steps to create your assets. If a decision maker is going to be away, check to make sure everybody knows what to do for the entire time they're away, plus a few extra days after they're back. Consider what could change that would mean people don't know what to do, like some feature doesn't work as expected. Before the decision maker leaves, make sure you know which decision they absolutely do not want you to make without them, such as they might have a particular part of the game that they're really passionate about and needs to be done a very specific way. Sometimes you're asked on the spot to make a decision right now. You shouldn't make a rash decision because somebody is pressuring you, or there's some implied peer pressure while people are watching in a meeting or something. If you don't have an instant answer, don't just respond straight away. It is okay to ask for time to stop and think it all through. And if you are asking for more time, make sure that expectations are clear about when you are going to follow up. And remember to actually follow up so that people can trust you more. If you're getting into situations where you need to be trying to make decisions constantly, try to do an audit of your decision-making process as a team and figure out how to improve it. Maybe that's considering terminology such as a RACI chart with responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. Maybe it's just looking at what's regularly blocking decisions or more. So there we have a bunch of questions to answer the original question and a bit of advice about decision making. Hopefully that's helpful. At the end of the day, I've said it before and I'll say it again, no one can ever know all of the information that would lead to 100% confidence in a decision. So you and or the decision maker are going to have to do your best to get as much information as possible, trust your gut a little bit, and then learn from past decisions. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you for joining me. Do not forget to like and subscribe. If you want some advice about game development and production, just ask me. Go to jensan.com/askjen. Remember, this is generally good advice and it may not be right for you and your team, even if you're the person who asked the question. For me to help you better, it needs to be a dialogue between me and you and your whole team. So feel free to hire me to consult for you. Just go to jensan.com to find out more. Thank you. Bye.